In this video, we're going to take you from quickly opening up a new project and creating what's called a mass in Revit. And masses are really one of the most powerful tools that Revit has, because not only can you create very organic looking shapes for your buildings, very kind of Frank Gehry-ish, if you will, but masses are also the basis for families, which we'll get into more during classes. But families are the foundation of most everything you end up putting into your project. Everything from doors and windows to furniture to people and trees are all different types of families. And so if you can really get a good grasp on how to work with and manipulate mass elements, then you'll already be a step ahead when we get to dealing with actual family creation and manipulation. But first things first, let's go ahead and move into the next part where we're going to open up a new project. Once we have Revit open and ready to go, we're going to go ahead and start a new project. And we've got a couple of different templates we can start from, or if you hit browse, there's a few more options. And in this case, we're going to go with the commercial default template. Each of these templates have different properties and families already loaded into them, and we'll talk more about those during class. But for now, just go ahead and start with the commercial default template. We want to create a new project, so we'll say OK. We'll go over a lot of the interface and some of the other features that Revit has during classes. However, to get started in here, I'm going to give you just the basics of what you need to know. So to start with, we're going to go to Massing and Site, and we're going to do an in-place mass. Now, this message, long story short, this is basically masses by default are not shown. We're going to turn them on so that you can see them. Is this okay? Yes, that's fine. Go ahead and close that. We'll give this mass a name. In this case, we'll give it building mass. Now that we've started the mass, we can go ahead and start drawing. To do this, we're just going to go ahead and pick lines. I'm just going to draw a couple of quick lines here, and I can type in dimensions. So we'll say 50 by 25, and I'll cancel that. Do another line over here that's 25 feet. And then, just for giggles, I'll put an arc in here. Alright, so now if I go to a 3D view, you see I've got a couple lines here, and I could go ahead and just select these, and I get this option for Create Form, and that will just extrude it straight up, and I can give it a height. Let's turn this to shaded, and you can see it's got a nice solid edge there. Pretty basic though, so I'm going to go ahead and undo back to just my simple line work, and I'm going to take this line work and I'm going to go into an elevation view, doesn't matter which one, and I'm going to copy it from the level 1 up to roof. If I go back to my 3D view, I just used Control-Tab to switch between open views. You can see I've got two sets of lines now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick these lines that I just created. I'm going to go to a top view, and I'm going to use my rotate command, RO. Okay, and then I'm going to type in 90 degrees for my rotation, and enter. Alright, I'm not crazy about this location, so I'm going to go ahead and move it. I'll use MV, or the move button up here. Go from endpoint to endpoint. Now I'm going to go back to my 3D view. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all of the lines. And again, I'm going to use this Create Form button. Go back to a shaded view. So here's my 3D mass, and I really kind of like this, except I'm afraid it's a little too short. So I'm going to hover over one of the edges, and by default it's going to go ahead and give me that whole top area, which is what I wanted. If it didn't give me the correct selection, now I haven't clicked at this point, I can use the tab button to cycle through various options. But in this case, I want this top area, and once I have that selected, it automatically gives me this little gizmo that will allow me to take this and move it up. And just like before, I can go ahead and put in a height in there. And this time I'll put in 50 feet. Yeah, I like that. It gives just a little bit of a curve to it, but still looks pretty straight on most of the edges. So at this point, we've taken a project from creating a new project to creating a new mass and shown you a couple of different ways of creating masses and working with them inside of Revit. Keep in mind when you're working with masses and you're trying to manipulate whole areas, your best bet is to come over and make sure you get an entire edge so that it highlights blue. So for example, when I was rotating, that's one of the things that may be causing people problems. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to meeting you in the next video where we will discuss taking this mass and manipulating it further to create some additional shapes and joining them together.